The town of Aderemi was alive with the sounds of the marketplace. Women rapped in brightly colored iro, and Buba sang praises of their wares. Fresh yams, ripe plantains, smoked fish, all displayed neatly on wooden stalls. Children ran between the traders, their laughter ringing like small bells in the air. The blacksmith pounded iron, sending sparks flying as he shaped tools and weapons. Through the heart of this bustling town walked Olumide, his rich dark agbada swaying with each confident step. He was a man of great wealth, the owner of Aderemi's largest cocoa plantation. His fields stretched as far as the eye could see, and his barns overflowed with cocoa pods that traders from far and wide came to buy. But for all his wealth, Olumide was a man with a heart as dry as the Harmattan wind. He had no compassion for the less fortunate. In his eyes, the weak were nothing more than a burden to society, and the disabled, those born with afflictions, were an embarrassment to the human race. The first sign of his wickedness appeared one market day. A blind old man sat near the entrance, a clay bowl before him as he begged for alms. His tattered clothes clung to his frail frame, and his milky eyes stared blankly ahead. "Please, my son, help me. I have not eaten today," the old man pleaded, his voice trembling. Olumide sneered, his lip curling in disgust. He bent down and kicked the bowl, sending the few coins inside clattering to the ground. "Help you? Why should I? Did you help yourself when the gods took your sight? Or were you too lazy to beg them to return it?" The market women gasped. A young girl ran forward and picked up the old man's coins, pressing them into his palm. She turned to Olumide with angry eyes. "Olumide, the gods are watching," she warned. Olumide chuckled, shaking his head. "The gods? If the gods cared for him, would they have left him in this state?" He turned and strode off, leaving the blind man to whisper a prayer under his breath. Another day, Olumide sat with his fellow landowners at a palm wine joint near the village square. The men were laughing loudly, boasting about their wealth and conquests. Suddenly, the conversation was interrupted by a commotion. A lame boy, no older than 10, was struggling to walk across the road. His thin legs, twisted at unnatural angles, made each step difficult. The village children ran past him, laughing. Olumide smirked. "Look at that one," he said, pointing at the boy. "Even a goat walks better than him." The village men chuckled, shaking their heads. "Life is cruel," one said. "Life is only cruel to those who cannot keep up," Olumide replied coldly. Just then, a woman emerged from one of the huts. Her wrapper was tied tightly around her waist, her face red with anger. It was Iya Abeni, the boy's mother. "Olumide," she called, marching towards him. "You sit here, a man of wealth, and you mock my child, a child who did nothing to deserve his fate?" Olumide folded his arms, unimpressed. "I speak only the truth, Iya Abeni. He's a burden to you, isn't he? He cannot farm, he cannot fetch water. What use is he?" Iya Abeni's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "And yet you, a man with 2 strong legs and 2 strong hands, have a soul that is more crippled than my son's body. May the gods deal with you, Olumide. May they show you that no man is above fate." The air grew tense. Some of the elders nearby muttered under their breaths. Baba Ifarotimi, the oldest diviner in Aderemi, watched from the shadows, shaking his head. "A man who mocks the wounded of life will one day be wounded himself," he murmured. But Olumide laughed. "You all speak as if fate can touch me. Look at me. I am strong. I am rich. The gods favor me." He turned his back on the people and walked away, still laughing. That night, as Olumide prepared for bed, His wife, Morayo, sat beside him, her face troubled. "Olumide, you go too far," she said softly. He sighed, turning to look at her. "Not you too, Morayo. Don't tell me you believe the nonsense these villagers whisper." She took his hand in hers. "I believe that the world turns, my husband. The calabash floating on water tilts today, and tomorrow it may turn in another direction. You mock those whom the gods have tested. But what if one day the test comes to you?" Olumide snatched his hand away. "That will never happen," he snapped. "I am different from those weaklings. The gods favor me." Morayo sighed, her eyes filled with sorrow. "May you never learn the truth too late." She turned her back to him and closed her eyes. But sleep did not come easily. A year later, Morayo became pregnant. The news brought Olumide great joy. He threw a grand feast, inviting drummers, dancers, and even the town elders to celebrate. "My son will be the strongest in Aderemi," he boasted to anyone who would listen. "He will run faster than the wind, climb trees like a monkey, be feared by all." His friends cheered, raising their cups of palm wine. The village women whispered amongst themselves, worried about what fate had in store. Morayo, however, remained silent. A deep unease settled in her chest, but she kept her fears to herself. As the months passed, Olumide grew more impatient. "When will my son come?" he would ask Morayo every morning. "Soon," she would reply. Then one fateful night, the labor pains came. As Morayo screamed in agony, the midwives rushed around, fetching hot water and clean clothes. Olumide paced outside, anxiety gnawing at him. Finally, after what seemed like an eternity, the cry of a newborn filled the hut. Olumide's heart swelled with pride. He rushed inside, eager to see his son. But the moment his eyes fell upon the child, his smile vanished. His son's legs were twisted beyond repair. His left arm was shriveled. His mouth was slightly deformed, making it difficult for him to cry properly. A heavy silence fell upon the room. Olumide staggered back, his breath coming in short gasps. "No! No, what is this?" he shouted. Iyakemi, the oldest midwife, stepped forward. She had seen many things in her years, and she recognized the look in Olumide's eyes: fear, denial, and something deeper, retribution. "This is the child the gods have given you, Olumide," she said calmly. "Perhaps they are teaching you a lesson." But Olumide's face darkened. "No, this is not my son. My son is strong, not this." Morayo clutched the child to her chest, tears streaming down her face. "He's our son, Olumide," she pleaded. But Olumide turned and stormed out of the hut, his anger hotter than the midday sun. Outside, Baba Ifarotimi watched from the shadows. He closed his eyes and whispered, "The gods do not sleep." The night was thick with silence. A full moon hung in the sky, casting a silver glow over the town of Aderemi. The sound of crickets filled the air, blending with the distant hoot of an owl. Inside his grand compound, Olumide paced furiously, his anger boiling like hot palm oil. His agbada, once worn with pride, now felt heavy, suffocating. His child, his firstborn son, was crippled. "No, this cannot be," he growled, kicking a wooden stool across the room. It crashed against the wall, startling his wife Morayo, who sat in the corner cradling the newborn. The child whimpered weakly. "Olumide, please," Morayo begged, her voice thick with emotion. "Come and see your son properly. Hold him." Olumide spun around, his face twisted with disgust. "Hold what? That thing?" he spat. "Do not insult me, Morayo. A man like me does not father a cripple." Morayo's heart ached at his words. She looked down at the tiny baby in her arms, his delicate fingers wrapped around her thumb. His innocent eyes blinked up at her, unaware of the storm brewing between his parents. "Olumide," she said gently, "he is our child. The gods gave him to us for a reason. Do not reject him." Olumide clenched his fists. "A child like this is a curse, Morayo. What will the people say?" "The great Olumide, father of a weakling. I refuse it. I refuse this shame." Morayo's eyes flashed with anger. "Shame," she snapped. "The only shame here is your heart, Olumide. A child does not choose how he is born, but a father chooses how he loves." Olumide pointed a finger at her. "You will not force me to love something that is not mine," he roared. "I will not name him. I will not acknowledge him. Do what you want with him. But he is not my son." With that, he stormed out of the hut, leaving Morayo sobbing into the night. The silent rejection days passed, and then weeks. Olumide refused to look at the child, refused to speak of him, refused to hear his cries. Morayo, determined to protect her son, named him Temitope, meaning mine is gratitude. She loved him fiercely, pouring all the love that Olumide denied him into every embrace, every whispered lullaby. The villagers, however, whispered amongst themselves. Olumide, the great cocoa merchant, had rejected his own son. Did you see the child? His legs twisted like the roots of a fallen tree. Maybe it is punishment from the gods. Olumide mocked the disabled for years. Now he has fathered one. Even the town elders shook their heads in disappointment. One evening, Baba Ifarotimi, the wise diviner, called Olumide to his shrine. The old man sat cross-legged on a woven mat, a single oil lamp flickering beside him. "Olumide," he began, his voice calm but firm. "Why do you reject your son?" Olumide scoffed, folding his arms. "That is not my son, Baba. The gods are mocking me. How can I, a man of strength, be given a crippled child?" Baba Ifarotimi sighed. "You forget, Olumide, that the gods do not give what is not deserved." Olumide's jaw tightened. "What are you saying, Baba?" The old man looked at him, his eyes deep with knowing. "For years, you laughed at those who suffered. You kicked the blind man's bowl. You called the lame child a goat. You turned your heart to stone. And now, Olumide, the gods have softened your heart by giving you a son who will teach you humility if you let him." Olumide shot to his feet. "Enough!" he bellowed. "I will not listen to this nonsense. I did not come here to be insulted." Baba Ifarotimi remained seated, unshaken. "You did not come here for insults, Olumide. You came here for answers, but you don't want the truth, and so you will suffer before you learn." Olumide turned on his heel and stormed out of the shrine. The whole man shook his head, whispering, "The gods do not sleep." The beginning of ruin. It started slowly. A single disease spread through Olumide's cocoa plantation. First, a few trees withered, their leaves curling and turning brown. Then, entire sections of his farm rotted, the cocoa pods turning black before they could be harvested. "This is bad luck," his workers murmured. Olumide dismissed them. "Bad luck? Foolish talk. I will replant." But then a fire broke out. In the middle of the night, flames devoured the storage barns where his best cocoa was kept. By morning, nothing but ashes remained. His workers began to leave one by one. "The gods are angry with him," they whispered. Still, Olumide refused to acknowledge any connection. "This is business. Losses happen. I will rebuild." But his troubles did not end there. Shortly after the fire, a strange illness took hold of him. His once powerful legs grew weak. Walking became a struggle. The more he tried to ignore the pain, the worse it became. "What is happening to me?" he muttered one evening, gripping his knees as he tried to stand. By the time he visited the village healer, the truth was clear. His legs were failing him. Morayo watched in silence, tending to Temitope as he giggled in her arms. One evening, as Olumide struggled to walk to the main hut, he saw his wife playing with their son. "Ah, my dear Temitope," Morayo cooed, lifting the baby into the air. "You are a gift. One day, you will teach this world the true meaning of strength." Olumide felt rage rise in his chest. "You dare to mock me with that child," he growled. Morayo turned, her expression calm but firm. "The only one mocking you, Olumide, is fate." Her words cut through him like a knife. That night, as he lay in bed, the weight of his sins pressed down on him, and for the first time a whisper of fear curled in his stomach. Had the gods truly cursed him? Had he been blind all along? As the wind howled outside his window, Olumide closed his eyes, but the darkness that met him felt heavier than usual. The sun had barely risen over Aderemi when Olumide struggled to get out of bed. His legs, once strong and sure, now trembled beneath him like a child learning to walk. He gritted his teeth and tried to rise, but a sharp pain shot through his knees, forcing him back onto the mat. "What is this?" he muttered, wiping sweat from his forehead. Morayo sat on the other side of the room, cradling Temitope, who cooed softly in her arms. She watched Olumide with an unreadable expression. "Your legs are failing you, Olumide," she said quietly. Olumide scowled. "It is just fatigue. I have been working too hard." Morayo shook her head. "The gods are speaking, but you refuse to listen." He shot her a glare. "I have told you to stop that foolish talk." But deep inside, fear was creeping in. His plantation was gone, his wealth was crumbling, and now his own body was betraying him. Was this truly a punishment from the gods? Number, it couldn't be. Olumide clenched his fist. He would not accept this. The desperate search for a cure. Determined to prove that his illness was just bad luck, Olumide sought out the best healers in Aderemi. He visited Baba Agboola, the village herbalist, who examined his legs with wrinkled hands. Baba Agboola murmured, feeling the stiffness in Olumide's knees. "Tell me what is wrong," Olumide demanded. The old man sighed. "This is no ordinary sickness. The gods have touched you." Olumide's jaw tightened. "You speak nonsense." "Do I?" Baba Agboola scooped some powder into a calabash. "Take this and rub it on your legs. But remember, medicine cannot fight the will of the gods." Olumide snatched the calabash and stormed out. Days passed. He applied the herbs, drank potions, performed sacrifices. But nothing changed. His condition worsened. His feet became so weak that he could no longer walk without the help of a staff. He, the mighty Olumide, had become what he once mocked, a cripple. The irony was a knife to his pride. But what broke him the most was the laughter of the village children. The cruel mirror of fate. One afternoon, Olumide struggled to cross the village square. He dragged himself forward, his staff digging into the dust. Children were playing nearby, throwing pebbles and laughing. When they saw him, they paused. "Look," one boy whispered. "Look," one boy whispered. "See how he walks," another giggled. Then came the words that made Olumide's blood run cold. "Even a goat walks better than him." The laughter rang in his ears like thunder. His vision blurred. His own words, the ones he had thrown at a helpless child years ago, had returned to haunt him. His heart pounded in his chest. He wanted to shout at them, to silence them, but his voice failed him. For the first time in his life, Olumide understood pain. Humiliation burned through him as he limped away, the laughter chasing after him like hungry dogs. He barely made it back to his compound before collapsing onto the ground. Morayo, hearing the commotion, rushed outside. "Olumide!" she cried, kneeling beside him, but he pushed her away. "Leave me!" She sighed, sadness in her eyes. "You are reaping what you have sown, my husband." Olumide squeezed his eyes shut. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to curse the gods. But he couldn't. Because deep in his heart, he knew she was right. The unforgivable sin. That night, darkness swallowed Olumide's soul. As he sat alone, his body aching, his mind turned to Temitope. He looked toward the hut, where his wife was rocking the son to sleep. "This child," he whispered, his voice like rusted iron. "This child is the cause of my suffering." A terrible idea formed in his mind. If he could get rid of the child, maybe, just maybe, the gods would forgive him. The thought settled in his mind like a demon perched on his shoulder. He waited until Morayo was fast asleep. Then, moving as silently as a snake, he crept into the hut and lifted Temitope from his mat. The child stirred slightly, but did not cry. Olumide's heart pounded as he wrapped the baby in a cloth and slipped into the night. The forest of no return. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds as Olumide made his way into the forest. The air was damp. The trees loomed like watchful spirits. The deeper he went, the more the silence pressed against his ears. Temitope stirred again, his tiny fingers brushing against Olumide's chest. For the briefest moment, something stirred inside him, a flicker of doubt, a whisper of guilt. But he shook it off. "The gods want a sacrifice," he muttered. "Let them take him." At last, he reached a clearing deep within the forest. The trees here were gnarled, their roots twisting like grasping hands. He bent down and placed Temitope on a flat rock. The baby cooed, looking up at him with wide, innocent eyes. Olumide's hand shook. For the first time, he saw not curse, but a helpless child. A child who had done nothing wrong. A child who trusted him. His heart thudded. A war raged in his chest. "Leave him," one voice whispered. "Finish it," another urged. But before he could decide, the wind howled through the trees. The rustling of leaves sounded like whispers, voices of the gods. Fear seized him. "Go," the wind seemed to say. Panic shot through Olumide. Without looking back, he turned and ran. The wrath of the gods. When Morayo awoke and found her son missing, her scream pierced the night. She searched for hours, her voice breaking with desperation, but Temitope was never found. Some said the gods took him, others believed the spirits of the forest protected him from his father's wickedness. But one thing was certain, Olumide had sealed his fate. From that night on, his suffering multiplied, his legs became useless, his eyes grew dim, as if the gods had stolen his sight. He became a shadow of the man he once was. And the town of Adarami whispered of his downfall, warning the children, the gods do not forget. The gods do not forgive. The town of Adarami woke up to the sound of wailing. Morayo's voice pierced the morning air, a cry so raw and painful that even the birds fell silent. She ran through the streets, her hair unwrapped, her wrapper loosely tied, her face wet with tears. "My child! Where is my child?" she screamed, beating her chest as she stopped in front of the elders' hut. The town elders, already gathered for their morning discussions, turned toward her in alarm. Baba Ifarotimi, the old diviner, stepped forward, his wooden staff thumping against the ground. "Morayo, what has happened?" he asked. She fell to her knees, her hands trembling. "My son Temitope, he's gone. He was beside me last night, but when I woke up, he was missing." Gasps rippled through the small crowd that had begun to gather. "What do you mean missing?" one of the women asked. Morayo's lips quivered. She knew the answer, but she did not want to speak it. Then, from the back of the crowd, a harsh, broken voice spoke. "Ask Olumide." All eyes turned as Olumide limped forward, his once mighty frame hunched over, his legs weak, his skin pale. He dragged himself toward them, his walking staff digging deep into the dust with each step. Morayo stood, rage igniting in her eyes. "Where is my son, Olumide?" she demanded. He looked away, unable to meet her gaze. The silence told her everything. A cry of pure agony escaped her lips. "You took him, didn't you?" she whispered, her voice trembling with rage. "You took my baby and left him in the forest to die." The villagers gasped. Olumide's lips quivered, but no words came out. "Answer me!" Morayo screamed, stepping forward. Finally, Olumide spoke, but his voice was hollow. "The gods wanted a sacrifice," he muttered. A heavy silence fell upon the crowd. "Sacrifice?" Baba Ifarotimi echoed, his voice filled with disbelief. "You abandoned your own flesh and blood to the spirits of the forest?" Olumide clenched his fist. It was the only way to break the curse. "Since that child was born, my life has crumbled. My farm was destroyed, my body weakened. He was a curse." Before he could finish, Morayo slapped him across the face. The sound rang through the air, sharp and final. Tears streamed down her face. "He was not a curse, Olumide. He was a blessing. And you," her voice broke, "you are the true curse in this family." Olumide staggered back, his pride shattered. The wrath of the village. The people of Aderemi murmured among themselves, their voices thick with disgust. What kind of father does such a thing? Even animals care for their young. He mocked the weak, and now he has become weaker than all of them. The chief of Aderemi, Bale Olatunji, stepped forward, his expression grave. "Olumide, you have disgraced the gods. You have defied the spirits. You have mocked those who cannot help themselves, and now you are cursed by your own wickedness." Olumide fell to his knees, his eyes wide with panic. "Please, Baale, please forgive me." Bale Olatunji shook his head. "The gods may forgive, but the spirits of the forest do not. And the people of Aderemi cannot welcome a man who kills his own son." He turned to the villagers. "From this day forward, Olumide is banished from Aderemi. He is no longer one of us." The villagers nodded in agreement, their faces hard with anger. Olumide's breath caught in his throat. "Banishment? No, please, I will change. I will." But the people had already turned away. Baba Ifarotimi's voice carried softly through the air. "A man who spits at the sky should not be surprised when the spit lands on his own face." Olumide wept, but no one pitied him. A life of suffering, banished from Aderemi, Olumide wandered the land, a broken man, a crippled beggar. He limped from village to village, seeking shelter, seeking food, but no one welcomed him. The stories of his wickedness had traveled far. That is the man who abandoned his own child. Let him suffer, he deserves it. Hungry, tired, and alone, he made his way back to the forest where he had abandoned Temitope. "Temitope," he whispered, his voice cracking. "My son, forgive me." But the forest remained silent. The wind whistled through the trees. The leaves rustled. But there was no sign of the boy he had thrown away. Olumide collapsed beside the very rock where he had left his son, his body too weak to move further. The weight of his sins pressed down on him, heavier than the world itself. "The gods do not sleep," he muttered, his voice barely above a whisper. Then, in the silence of the night, Olumide took his last breath. His body lay forgotten, just as he had forgotten his son. The legacy of his sins. Back in Aderemi, life went on without him. Morayo, though heartbroken, found solace in the belief that Temitope had been saved by the spirits. She refused to believe he had perished. Every night, she whispered his name to the wind, praying that somewhere, somehow, her son still lived. And the villagers? They told Olumide's story to their children, a warning for generations to come. Mock not the weak, lest the gods humble you. Reject not your blood, lest fate rejects you. For the gods do not forget, and the gods do not forgive.